All right, so we're ready to cover the new planning module and IAP and Super 2.0, and Linda gets to start us off again.
Yay, I get to do the introductions. That's so good. Well, we're excited to get started, and I'm sure many of you maybe have been into the planning module now. They got that updated for 2021. So we're going to go over and tell you what's changed. Most of the changes have been deletions of things we're not asking for, which is good. So that should make it a little more simple. And the one thing I forgot to mention, we forgot to mention this morning, is that there is a new guide or help under help in Super, under help for IAP as well. So if you're looking for some additional printed material, or look at it, it's online under where David showed you the events. It's also under plans. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, and then we're going to go through Nancy's going to take us through, and we're going to do live working with a plan just so that you can see. So, you know, why we plan, why are we doing this? One, we want to be proactive in meeting the needs in our community. We want to begin with the end in mind, and we'll be talking about that as we go through, but we want to first, of course, identify the needs that the county has, and then what do we want the end result to be? So when we think about begin with the end in mind, we want to think about the outcomes that we need to help with the needs that are there. And we want to put first things first. This plan is your work that will be evaluated during your performance appraisal. That doesn't mean that your other work will not be evaluated, because base programs are part of your appraisal as well. But this is what you plan, that you say, I'm going to work to have impact and behavior change and really making a difference. Now, let's think about this. Well, this time last year, we were doing a plan for 2020, and we know what happened, right? So this is a plan. Things can change. You know, it's going to be, and we'll talk some about how we're going to address the, you know, what's going to happen in 2021 throughout the plan, you know, throughout the year. A lot of, you know, we're not sure what's going to happen. And so just remember that it's a plan, but we want to work to make sure that we're meeting the needs that we've identified in our county. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what the big changes that have happened. And really, as you can see, it's mostly no, 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 no. So in the boxes where you put your information from the agent or about the county, there's a 6,000 character limit. So you have to be succinct in what you do. And you have to remember that there is a limit. There is not going to be any no entry of the number of days. Used to, you had to enter 140 days if you were full-time in one program area, or you divided it 70-70 or 35, whatever. So that is no longer required for you to put in the number of days. Under the collaborators partners tab in the plan, you no longer have to list any of the financial resources that are part of that plan. That has been taken out because you report that elsewhere in Super 2.0. So you do not have to list all those financial expenditures. You no longer in the outcomes section have to include the target audience number. That has been taken out. It was ambiguous, as nobody really knew what it meant or what it was used for. So we took it out. Also, there's no section on funding and there's no section on scope anymore. And in the planned evaluation method, there were links, and those have been eliminated as well. So you will not have those links to link to other opportunities or other resources. So also, I would say that one of the changes has been that we used to ask you to take things out, like what came in from the state action agendas. And we would say, take out anything that doesn't relate to your program or your planned evaluation. And the ability to do that is not there anymore. So you just leave it, and there will be some things you can do, and Nancy will go over that with target audience and that kind of thing. But there are some places where we used to ask you to take those things out, and you're not able to do that. You will see that there's going to be an opportunity to duplicate an agenda. We don't want you to do that for 2021 because we're seeing, as the transition from Super Classic to Super 2.0, the formatting and all of that is not smoothly going into 2021 plans or other opportunities that we see. So we don't want you to do that for 2021. But in the future, you will see this on, as we go through, there will be an opportunity to duplicate agenda. So, there might be some changes you might want to make, but there will be an opportunity to duplicate an agenda. And there's no, this question got asked last time, and a lot of people do that because I've always said, make the font bigger or, highlight it or whatever. And there's nothing in there that you can do to change the font, or no text rich, no any of that. The font is now ADA, so you can read it. And I think Nancy will talk more about that. So, and then the process, same as before, you work on your plan, submit it to the county director. They should set a date. And then we're asking the county directors to get the plans to us by November 1, if possible. There was a checklist. Let's see, there was I know the checklist went out. That was in Ty's email last week, I think, right, Ty?
That's right.
Okay, so what we want is we want each agent, and this is not, we've asked this every year, we want each agent as well as the county director to go through that checklist because it's updated. So make sure you use the one that came in Ty's email and go through that before it's submitted to the regional program leaders, because it's those little things a lot of times, and we've tried to eliminate as much of those as possible, that we've missed that cause us to send that back. We do ask that the county directors read the IAPs of their agents, review them, and then coach them if they need changes or additions, and then submit that on. We do understand, I mean, today's the 19th, and so that's a couple of weeks until the 1st. But if the county directors, or if you feel like you need extra time, then you need to discuss that with me or Ty or Nancy, because we're the ones who are going to be reviewing and approving the plans. And I think we talked about this with the new agents when we did their training, but we're going to get all the plans approved. They're all going to be at 5, but there may be a process to get there. And I'll just mention this as we talk about this, that I'm going to be working in doing all the adult FCS plans. Nancy and Ty are going to be working on the 4-H plans, the full-time 4-H plans. Ty, of course, will be doing the adult ag plans, and then Nancy is going to be working on the joint, if you're 4-H and FCS, and then I'll help her with that if needed. So, but we're all here to help. We're all here to answer questions in the next couple of weeks. And so we will be more than happy to do that. So, and I'm sure many of you have been looking at this and thinking about it, because the dates are no different than what they've been before. So I think that's the end of my slides, and I'll turn it over to Nancy.
All right, thanks, Linda. One of the things that's listed here when you go to the agenda that's different, we don't have a place for the 140 days any longer, so that's eliminated. We do have the agent time devoted to the agenda. As far as you planning, the IAP still counts for 60% of your time, and with that base program with agriculture, FCS, or 4-H. So needing to plan for the 60% is still there with regards to submitting the IAP. One of the things that you'll do when you go to the agenda, you'll choose that base program area with FCS, Ag, or 4-H, and then there'll be other choices based on the first choice. So you'll then go to knowledge area, and you can select different knowledge areas that you'll be programming in, and then topics that are appropriate, and then you'll have the appropriate outcomes based on the topics that you select. And anything that's not part of your agenda, there are multiple things that are already going to filter in that are already selected based on the state agendas that are noted, and you would just deselect anything that's not part of your specific agenda. We're asking that FCS agents select 3 to 5 topics, and then the 4-H agents, you should have up to 3 life skills. Some will have 2, some will have 3. And then those that are planning conducting on my own, there will be an FCS component to that so that you're able to access the on my own outcomes as well. And so as we go through and look at topics and such, you'll see where you're able to do those things as well. In the next area, looking at relevance, there's the section there for needs assessment. So you'll have part of the state or the state statement that's there. And then this is the part where you need to add the stakeholder input. Think about other places that you may get, oh, can you back up? There you go. Census data, and there may be information in the newspaper that shows a need for programming in your county, along with the Chamber of Commerce, and just as far as working on providing that information for the needs assessment. This can also include and should include stakeholder input and data indicators, and that information can come from advisory committee that's set up, ag committee, key stakeholders, and then evaluation data that you may have from a program or data indicators that are available for your county. And then also identify how diverse or underrepresented stakeholders or clientele were included in the needs assessment process. So you want to share gender, race, specifically where you got information, and you want to include that underrepresented audience and stakeholders there with regards to adding that to your needs assessment. And so those noted in that needs assessment section. So you could list how many people surveyed, or genders, race, that sort of thing. Then we have life skills identified, and with the IAA, and we're asking that 4-H have no more than 3 life skills. Some will have 2, some will have 3 with regards to the relevance there.
So
And,
Nancy,
yeah.
let me
Yes.
just, we had a question. I think Connie was asking how
Okay.
many for split agents. So it really depends. You don't have to have 3 life skills and 3 topics. And I mean, it sort of depends, and we can talk about that. you know, so look at how your program works out and think about that as far as, but you don't have to do like 5 in FCS and 3 in 4-H. That's a lot when you're thinking about being a joint agent. So, and the other thing I wanted to say is if you are a TSU agent, that everybody has to do how diverse or underrepresented stakeholders were included in the needs assessment process. But TSU is specifically asking for this, and Nancy will talk about that in the plans for coming year as well. But if you work for TSU, then this needs to be very much a part. You need to make sure that you have how they were included in your needs assessment. And it can either be actual clientele, or it can be those people who work with that clientele is fine as well. But it definitely needs to be a part of every agenda. But TSU, they're going to be out looking and asking for that. So we want to make sure you know that.
All right, that's a good question. As we move on into plans for the coming year, there will also be some defaults on those target audiences. And so you want to make sure you review those, and you can select or deselect target audiences for the agenda. But as we go into plans, we want to make sure that those target audiences are noted in the plans, so that it reflects who you'll be working with related to that. There'll be a lot of other information as you go through and see that may not be part of the agenda, but you'll leave that information because there's no way to take that portion out. And you'll see an example of that when we work through one. We want the timelines to be monthly or quarterly timeline. And in doing so, we'll talk about in a second that the programming first and activities second, and then also planned use of volunteers. So if you have volunteers that are leading programs or involved in assisting with instruction, involved in the program delivery in the community, that sort of thing, as far as where those volunteers play a role. Also, as part of plans for the coming year, looking at those delivery methods as we transition into 2021, we may still be offering things virtually in some locations and face-to-face in others, but we want you to, if you think you're doing face-to-face, also have a virtual component to that if you think that there is something that may occur, or if you need to start out the first of the year virtual and hopefully transition more to face-to-face, then you'll note that in your plans as well. So some already know what their school systems or programs or agency partners may be doing, and some it may be a transition one way or the other to that. So you can include how you would do that using both methods if that's needed. We want to focus on the timeline. First should be educational sessions, and then supporting activities. We have an example here in just a second. And the education being first, and who you're working with and what that may be, and then the supporting activities related, those things that are related to that, but may not be direct education, but also activities where people will have an opportunity to show the education that they've learned and the new skills that they've learned, that sort of thing. And then, as Linda said, the explicit plan to reach diverse audiences, we've included this, but all agents need to have that included, and especially with the TSU agents. So, but everybody will need to, it can be at the end of the plans for the coming year, or if there are things that you know that you are doing throughout the year to reach those diverse audiences, then those can be part of the monthly or quarterly plans, but it does have to be included in there and clear that as far as the plan and to have the details with that regarding that diverse audience.
And I might add, in the email announcing this meeting last week, when you received the IAP checklist, you also received a document called Reaching Diverse and Underrepresented Audiences in the plan for the plan section of the IAA. And it's got a lot of nice little ideas that might help you develop that plan if you're feeling like you need some ideas, and just adapt those to your county and see if there's some things there that would be helpful to you. You might even combine a few of them together or adapt them to your specific situation. But there's some really good ideas there. We really like to see that explicit plan there at the end of your plans for the coming year, just to make sure that it's there and you've put that thought into it, and we know you're going to make it happen.
There's a question from Lucy as far as where do I find TNCEP needs assessment for this program year?
Lucy, you would need to check with, let me think about who that is, but you did a needs assessment with TNCEP back in the spring.
Mhm.
You should have that because they usually do it so that they can work on their state plan. So you should have that from the spring.
Okay, so I don't need to send out another one.
Not necessarily. I would probably have some conversations with some key stakeholders,
Okay.
especially in this, time of COVID-19. And I'd probably talk to them about what they see needs are, because, with TNCEP and with SNAP benefits, we're seeing an increase. I was just reading about that. And so there may be some increased need there. So I would have some conversations, but I would use that needs assessment that you did back in the spring.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. And looking at the timeline, this is an example of a monthly timeline, and this is not all inclusive. So you wouldn't have necessarily just 2 bullets within a month's program. It will probably have more information. The other thing, we focused on 4-H with regards to this, and then in parentheses, those would be the life skills that are focused on. There are more than 3 of them listed, so this would not be one person's plan. It's just some examples of some of the bullets and things that could be in there, because we want the 4-H agents to focus on 2 to 3 of the life skills. But you see, for January, we do have the educational piece first, with the numbers, the grades, the clubs, that sort of thing. And then as far as looking at an advisory meeting, who might be included in the advisory meeting and how it's conducted. And so with regards to that being virtual. February, looking at more senior audience focused on communication. And then the next, as far as teaching Tennessee history, again with the grades, the number of clubs, looking at a virtual option, but also the potential there for YouTube videos being sent to the teachers that could enhance and followed through and added to the class at a different time besides just the virtual classes. And then looking at hosting an honor club retreat, that might be a face-to-face, something you could partner with a neighboring county. That would be a multi-county opportunity there as well. So any questions as far as going through looking at timeline?
I think this is a good example where we might kind of expect to see in a lot of plans that there's some virtual and maybe there's some face-to-face. That face-to-face might be later in the year. And then when there is a face-to-face program, it would be great if you could note there, if you have to go virtual, would that be offered virtual? And if it would be, then you could just note will be moved to virtual if necessary, kind of thing. And so it just shows that you've really put some serious planning into this to see what is possible and how can you make it happen, because that's kind of the mode we're in of how do we make these programs go? And so we're going to just have to be really creative this year.
Hey, Ty, what I struggle with is that number there. Like, teach how to write a speech with so many kids. That used to be our target audience. Because let's say we did have 100 and some clubs. And, virtually right now, maybe we can only meet with 25. It is so uncertain. So how flexible can we just do a low guess, because we don't know?
It's fine, Connie.
Yeah.
It's
You
fine.
may not even have a number of clubs. You're just going to try and you're going to do as many as you can. And it's going to be those grades.
Yeah, just give your best thought. It's a plan and things change. So, just use the, the information that you have and, put it in there. And then, if it changes, it changes. I mean, look at this year, it's all just combobulated, right? So it's okay.
Yeah.
We're trying to get a idea of the scope of the program, how many clubs, and we look at also the enrollment report and that too, but just trying to get a scope of it.
All right. Next we move to collaborators and partners. And with this section, looking at partners, you want to list those and then the specific roles, whether they're helping with planning, delivery, funding, offering a location to meet, volunteers, those sorts of things. Then we look if there's an opportunity for multi-county programming. Some programs already are planning and programming with a neighboring agent or 2 or 3 agents, or you may have multiple counties working in different program areas, assisting with programs. So you want to go through and be specific about the roles that different partners are going to be playing, and that they will be meeting throughout your program plan. And then the resources have been taken out, but there are places in your profile that you can put that information that is part of your performance appraisal. So those things that you've applied for, if you've gotten donations or grants or things like that, that there's that area in your profile to add that information. All right, Ty, I think I'm handing it over to you.
All right. So let's talk about outcomes for just a minute. And we talked about earlier, I think that the target number is not going to be a requirement. So we'll just be able to skip that part this year. So when we select our outcomes, and I think you'll like the way this is set up when you see it in the little demo that Nancy's going to do. You can select by the family like we always have, but you can also very easily select in each individual outcome that you want to choose. So if there's 5 in 4-H public speaking and you only want 3, you can do that on the front end and just select those 3. And then, we do on the 4-H side want to make sure that those life skills that we've identified in the relevance section match up with any outcomes that we choose to report for impact related to our plan. If you want to report on other life skills, then you still have that opportunity in your base programs, which would be great. But we just stick with those 3. And then on the, I guess I'm not sure that we totally addressed this, but there was a question about the number of plans, I think, and maybe it was just topics that Connie was asking about, but it made me think about the number of plans. And so normally if you're 100% agent, most of the time we strongly encourage you to just submit 1 plan. And I think especially on the FCS side, that's always true. And then when you're a joint agent, if there's a way to combine into 1 plan, more power to you. You go for it if it makes sense. But often our joint agents that are 50-50 are probably going to more often end up with 2 plans, and that might just fit what you're doing better. So just to cover that in case there's a question. And right here, we've got a link to the FCS Impact booklet. And I know Linda wants to share a little bit about that, but you've got that direct link to go there if you need to check it out.
Well, and I would say it's just been the last, what, 2 or 3 years that FCS agents have gone to one agenda, not two. So we're really happy about that. I do want to point out that for FCS agents as well as 4-H agents, that the collective impact booklet is on the FCS website under internal resources. So this is the direct link, because sometimes you have to hunt for it. And it has, I sent out an email to all the FCS agents with this as well. And then there are some changes, and I'm going to be sending out some more information about that. But the reason this is here is if you are a 4-H agent and you are using On My Own as part of your agenda, which is great, we're excited and want it to be a part of your agenda. And they're working on a virtual option, awesome, that we're going to move toward, yay. But it does have to be reported under FCS, and you'll see this as we go. Nancy shows the demonstration that it is built into the Workforce Development State Action Agenda. But this booklet, you can go to this website, or you can talk to your FCS agent. They can help you find it, or they may have a booklet, a paper booklet that we gave out, I guess, 3 years ago. And it lists the outcomes that relate to On My Own. And there are 3 topics with FCS that relate to On My Own. And you can just select those particular topics that are part of that would be outcomes for your On My Own program. So we want to make sure when you're including On My Own, and many of you have in the past, that we're including those outcomes for FCS to report On My Own, because this goes back to our funder who gives us large amounts of money to be able to do On My Own statewide, and we have to report back to that funder. And many of you have seen an email this week or last week, I guess, that they're asking for some information, and that's just our funder, because we want to make sure we continue that funder. So that's going about the booklet. So we've got a question about diverse audiences. Smaller counties, more rural counties have smaller, make inroads. Yeah. So that's one of the challenges we face in many of our counties in the eastern region about diverse audiences, because our numbers are low and we don't have large amounts of diverse audiences. But it is our responsibility to look for people, to assess the needs of those audiences. That's why we said it can be people who actual clientele, or it can be agencies or partners that work with clientele that are diverse or underrepresented. So it's something that we are committed to, and our administration is committed to, that we seek out and we get input into the needs, and then we make special efforts to reach those audiences. You can't force people to do things. I mean, we know that, but we have to make sure that we are planning efforts to reach out to those audiences. And it is difficult because of the small numbers of population, though it is growing, and we can see that in many counties that it's growing. So, but it is something that we are committed to, and that needs to be included in both the relevance part of your plan and also plans for coming year.
All right, let's jump into the planned evaluation section. The first thing is we're going to select on the drop-down box the appropriate evaluation methods that we're going to choose. And I think that's pretty straightforward the way we've done before. And then we would really like to ask you all to give us just a little bit of detail about how you're going to evaluate your program. So the who, when, how, where, and what that you're going to get that data for your outcomes. So one thing that I'd really like to see is that you tell us what family of outcome indicators you're using with what program. And that just kind of helps us understand how you're going about things. You know, just eliminates any question now, how are you going to do this, or what are you using to evaluate, and all that kind of thing. And, you know, if you have some longer term evaluation that you're going to do, you can share how you're going to do that to find out the, you know, behavior change or economic impact, some of those kind of things. Of course, we're always trying to utilize those statewide instruments as much as possible. So they gather the statewide impact and put that together, and it makes that a whole lot more powerful. So that's why we do that. And we do not have to worry about these planned evaluation method links. A lot of times in past years, I've seen where they are not active links anymore. So we've just eliminated those. If you ever have a problem finding a survey for an outcome indicator, feel free to contact one of the program leaders and we'll get what you need for you. We've eliminated funding. So the place to report funding is in your profile. And then you can also report user fees through the events entry that we just talked about earlier today. We've eliminated scope. We figured out if you're a county extension agent, we pretty well know that the primary scope is in your county, and that's straightforward. So we've eliminated that for you to have to worry about. Now, as we're thinking about getting these individual action plans submitted, wanted to let you know that all sections of the IAP have to have some text in the boxes in order to save that IAP or agenda, to save the agenda. So every box has to have something in it. So if you're just working on one or two boxes, just write test or something else into those others, just so you can have a placeholder, and then it will allow you to save what you've got there. And again, we always recommend, especially for the plans for the coming year and the relevance section, to type that into Word, and then when you're ready, you can copy and paste. So the IEP is not, you can't be submitted until both of the action agendas are completed, if you do two, or a single action agenda is completed. And of course, it has to be also reviewed by the county director. So we do submit them, and the first time they go straight to the county director, and then they can either be forwarded on and approved and go to the region program leader, or they can be returned with some comments to the agent to do some edits. And so we want to try to have those in by November 1. And we know that we're a little later than normal with this training, so let's do the best we can and see if we can get those approved fairly quickly this fall as we get into early November. So we're looking forward to getting started on that and getting to 2021. So just to review what we've covered here, we've got 5 main sections that we're going to take care of for our IAPs for 2021. We've got the relevance section, plans for the coming year, collaborators and partners, outcomes, and then planned evaluation methods. So I think that's a little more streamlined, should be a little bit more smooth running process. And let me just ask you all, what questions do you have at this point before we go into our live demonstration? Any questions? I don't see anything coming into the text box. So Nancy, if you want to get fired up there for our demo. We're just about to wrap up.
Okay, as you come into the Super 2, you're on your home page. You can go to plans, and there's a section for my plans and search plans. And so if you want to see other people's plans, you can go into that area, and then you want to go into my plans. Todd, do you want to narrate while I work through this?
Be glad to.
Okay.
So as we're looking here at, you can see some past plans, but first thing you're going to do is go ahead to the blue button and create your plan. And it does say 2021. That's the default. That's what we're looking for. And so at this point, you're going to add an agenda. And knowing that Nancy is a 4-H extension agent, I'm going to guess she's going to pick workforce preparation. All right. So then we just slowly work our way down through the page here. And so with the agenda home, the base program is going to have 4-H youth development and family and consumer sciences selected, so that family and consumer sciences option brings in the opportunity to use the on my own outcomes. So Nancy does have an on my own program, so we're going to keep it like that. If you didn't, you could uncheck that box for FCS. Now, in this section, we're in 4-H positive youth development and consumer economics. There's nothing necessarily extra checked there that she doesn't need. So that I think looks good. We're going to leave that alone. But if there were some things there that you needed to select or needed to unselect, you could. And then this is where we need to deselect some options. We've got 15 different things loaded up. And so she's going to focus on those 3 life skills. Plus, she'll leave in her on my own outcomes, which is assess, manage, and protect resources, build assets, and then down below, I think we have increased capacity to produce income. So she's working on deselecting some of those that she's not going to use. And on the 4-H side, this probably loads up a lot more than what you'll see on the FCS and A&R side, but rather see you have us do a little extra work. And if you don't have to do as much work, then that'll be great. So our relevant section is here. We've got the state relevant statement associated with the action agenda. And then here's our agent addition. And as soon as we start typing, we have less characters available. But here we just need the basic details. You know, a few paragraphs and some statistics is probably fairly adequate. We really don't want to see anybody using all 6,000 characters, please.
That's true. But you want to make sure it answers that question. Why is this issue important in your county and who said so? And include the how diverse and underrepresented audiences were involved in the needs assessment, because that's one of the more frequent things that we see is that not included. And we've done that. That's not different. It's just there's a little more emphasis put on that now by TSU here in relevance and then also in the plan.
And so normally we actually list the number by race, ethnicity, and gender of people that are involved in those needs assessment processes, which is great.
But we don't need long paragraphs. We just.
All right, so then we have our plans for the coming year, and we're going to select our target audiences here. So do what you feel is appropriate. Note that on my own is a target audience, so Nancy's going to choose that to go along with 4-H youth and volunteers for her audience. And so then we'll slide down. This all loads up automatically and it's not anything we can edit. So we're going to leave that alone, but there may be some useful links there for you to support your program. And then this is where we'll get to put our plans for the coming year. Hopefully we're probably going to copy and paste from Word and just paste that right in here when we have it ready.
So what she's typing in, and I sent an email to the FCS agents. So at the beginning of your agent timeline, just list the curricula that are going to be part of your timeline. All you have to do is just list the names of the curricula that you're going to use during the year. So if you'll just add that at the beginning and then put your timeline in, and she's done a good job with your education, what you're teaching. We're an educational organization. So what you're teaching goes first, and then the activities that support what you're teaching. And it's just related to the life skills and the outcomes. It's not everything you're doing, because lots of times we want to list everything we're doing, but it really needs to relate to the outcomes you've selected.
And I would say when we say, let us know what you are teaching, sometimes we're coordinating a class and we might have several guest speakers, but we really like it when you can point out the topics that you're responsible for teaching. Even if it's not 100% sure, but this is what you expect to happen, that's what you're planning for. Maybe you have to swap something out later and take on a different topic, but let us know what you plan to teach yourself. And
then also, where are you utilizing volunteers or collaborators? Are you using, like if you were doing time like Master Beef, you may be having 3 specialists and those things. And Lucy says, I'm confused about the difference between education and activities. So education is what you are teaching. What are you going to be teaching? Activities are those things that support that. Maybe you're going to do a display at the health department, or you're going to have, you know, something at the school that supports what's going on, but it's not you're actually teaching.
A 4-H agent may have a public speaking contest, or an A&R agent may make some farm visits to back up some of those educational things that they've taught.
And Maria, this is not just for FCS agents, this is for everybody. The only thing that is for FCS agents specifically, excuse me, is that they list their curricula at the top. That's the only thing specific to FCS agents.
So, Linda.
Is for everybody. Yes, Anastasia.
So for 4-H agents, or, you know, split, when we're listing like our club meetings and stuff, are you not wanting us to list the curriculum we're using there anymore?
You can, yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. It's good to do that.
Okay.
It's just specifically, you can list that in the timeline. I'm just asking for FCS agents to put it at the top.
Okay.
So that we just have a list, and that's for me, honestly. So, but yeah, you know, you're going to teach Health Rocks. Health Rocks comes to mind, you know, and you're going to be doing the, you know, the lesson, you know, from Health Rocks on. It's just not coming to my mind right now, sorry, but.
And then to finish up that, just remember to have your explicit plan to reach diverse audiences there at the end of that section.
And Connie asked a question to put an example. Connie, we showed you an example earlier in the PowerPoint, so go back and refer to your PowerPoint.
And of course, we're going monthly or quarterly here.
Right.
So our next section, when we're ready, will be collaborators and partners. And we want to make sure, of course, we're identifying who those partners are and list their specific role. could be providing volunteers, could be providing a place for us to meet, could be hosting a meeting, could be funding. We don't have to go into detail about funding, but that's a partner role for sure.
When you say identify, do you identify their personal name and plus who they're with, or can we just say Sevier County Food Ministries or something? I mean, how far do we identify?
You can do both.
Okay, so you want a name with the agency?
If you have it, that would be good.
Okay, all righty, thank you.
We can leave that partly up to your discretion too. And then we have outcomes. And so this is pretty neat when you go into select. You can check them all, but especially when there's a big set, usually we're going to identify a handful and go with those. So pick out the ones that work best for you and to evaluate what you're teaching. And then you're ready to go with it. Of course, those are loaded up based on what you inputted earlier on this page up above when you chose.
But the thing about it is, that's why you think about the end in mind, because you want to think about what is it, and looking at these outcomes first before you write your plans for coming year are really the way to do that, so that you can say, okay, here's what I have to achieve. Now, what is it I need to do? What are the things I need to do to achieve, make sure I'm making progress toward those goals?
So before Nancy narrowed down those topics up above, as soon as she picked workforce preparation, she could have come down and just looked at all of those possible outcomes and, just made sure that she was going in the right direction, and then come back through and write the plans for the coming year to target those. Planning with the end in mind.
Yeah. So one of the things is we want to be selective about what we're doing, but we also want to make sure that we have enough outcomes that is showing that we're having an impact. So, and I know there are less outcomes in A&R, and there were some changes. So those of you in FCS, there were some changes, and I have sent those out. So most of this has not changed really from when we've done plans before.
All right. And then we go into planned evaluation, and that's just where you let us know, what exactly are you going to do to run your evaluation. You're going to choose that method or methods, check those boxes that you're going to use, and then give us just a short but specific plan about how you're going to do your evaluation. What family of topics are going to use with which group, and when are you going to do it, that kind of thing.
And one of the things in the methods, Nancy, go back up to the methods right there, and just no, back in planned evaluation.
Oh, here.
Yeah. So click on right there. So one of the things that is in there is observations. And lots of times we want to choose that because, we'll observe. Well, if you're going to do observations, I would highly not do that this year, because you don't know if you're going to see people to make observations. And if you're going to use that as an evaluation technique, you have to have a plan. You have to tell us what outcomes you want that you're observing for, who, when, how are you going to record that? And so for 2021, I honestly would not be including observations, because that's going to be probably not going to be as relevant especially this next year. There are other ways to do things to get evaluation.
So we're
It
gonna click.
Yeah, it looks like on saving the agenda, it'll tell you if you don't have something in an area, but it looks like it's gonna need to save after you do your outcomes, because I went back to the first group and they're gone. So, so just FYI to go in and save those, and maybe just put a test or a few words in the evaluation section so you could save it.
So Ty, will you make a note there so that can be sent to Brad? Because that
Yeah, it should
really
show
should
up.
not
Yeah, they're saved on that one.
be happening.
Yeah, it saved them, but it didn't look like it saved them when I went back
Okay.
ahead of it. So just, yeah, we may have to play with that a minute and make sure it works that way.
Well, it's something we can check on.
So when it's finished, you've got your 4-H workforce preparation. You can still go in and edit, or you can get rid of it, or there is the green submit button. So to do that. And like we talked about, it's best to do this in Word, because you can make spaces between, and it'll take a bullet if you're bulleting in Word, but it's not formatted for that. So you need to realize that if you're going to go in and change a lot of things, you can always clip and take it out and paste it back in. But you can't go in and hit the end of the line and start another bullet. No underlining, no bold font, anything like that. Making other things different colors, highlighting, any of that sort of thing is not available. So I'm going to stop share.
Nancy, is there any special keys that we need to copy and paste like we have in the past, or can we just copy it directly from Word into this?
I believe you should be able to copy and paste, just like the holding down, clicking the cursor and all that. So
Seems
the
remarkably
controls.
easier now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you used to have to take it through WordPad and InSeeker, but they've eliminated all that.
Well, any other questions before we call it a day here?
All right, just checking. This is Vicky. We do a plan for our program area in FCS. We also do a base program plan.
No,
Okay. That's what I wanted to
no,
make sure of.
no,
Yeah.
no.
When we've used the word base program here, it's like agriculture, FCS.
It's just like we've
4-H.
done before. You will do one. The reason she said that earlier is because we don't want you to plan 100% of your time in your agenda. And that's because you all know that we really plan about 60% of our time. So we've gotten rid of the day thing, right? But we want you to make sure that you're not planning 100% of your time to be in a plan. You do not have to do a base program plan at all. No.
Yay.
So your base programs are what you do that are not in your plan. And that is in the
You just
performance.
report it under base program. If it's not in your plan, you report it in delivery under your base programs. Woo! Please don't think that.
Split agents.
That was a great question, though. It was a great question.
Just to
Then
clarify,
make sure, I think I know the answer, but split agents still do an FCS and a 4-H plan, right? We do 2 IAPs.
Yeah. Well, for new agents, we are saying you can do that. If you can work and get all of your planning in one for your 4-H, because you're 50-50, if you can get it all in one plan, we're open to that. Yes.
So how would you do that with having to choose the separate IAAs though?
Well, you don't, you just choose one because you're given the option to have multiple base programs. And reporting is done by topics, not by the name of the agenda.
But what about the life skills for 4-H?
Yeah, they'll default into that next. When I went across the screen, I picked my workforce prep as the first piece, but then those 3 below, you can go back in there and you can check additional areas, and then it'll default to the middle one where I had another program area, and then all those topics show up and you can select the ones that you need. And so you may have 2 or 3 life skills for 4-H, and then you may have some of the FCS, depending on what you're planning to do. And then it'll default into the outcomes that you want to report to. So
Okay, we just have to get in there and play with it.
it can still be, I guess, a 4-H workforce prep or an FCS resilience program, but you'll have components in that section just down below that will be the defaults.
So no more than 3 life skills for 4-H, and I would say no more than 3 topics for FCS, but you can put it in there, not new agents, but you can work on that. And I think Nancy or I can help you with that if we need to.
Be expecting a call.
Why am I not surprised? Yeah, we talked about it and we really we want to eventually get there. It's just, we weren't really sure how it would work with this new system. The good thing about FCS is when you have FCS as a base program, all of those topics, which they're now 14 instead of 15, they all show up when you choose it. So it gives you that option to do that. So. Great questions.